Everyone is in a state of sin. Those who say they have done nothing wrong, you say rather you admit nothing wrong. Some sins we have committed, some we've contemplated, some we've desired, some we've encouraged. In all of these we've sinned. Thesis on love is very interesting. The soul alone renders us noble. It may rise superior to fortune out of any earlier condition, no matter what condition it's been. How do you do that? Simply by distinguishing between good and bad things. Only one thing to do. One may leap to heaven from the very slums. Only rise and mold yourself to kinship with God. This, I should mention their names, but I have them all copied for you. This is a commentary on Seneca. He's one of the Stoics. The precepts of Seneca appealed to have precise analogues in the Gospels, even if they're justified with different reasons. In particular, the precept of love and forgiveness. Especially fruitful is forgiveness towards those who offend you. To accept the offenses without hatred, and not to be implacable against those who act evilly. To be, on the contrary, for these motives of good hope, it's proper to placid and cordial natures. How much better that the philosopher shows such dispositions to maintain as worthy of forgiveness he who has offended him, rather than believe in defending by appealing to the causes and to lawsuits, and in reality to detract from himself. God is providence. He's the immanent mind. He's nature. He's fate. For what else is nature but God and the divine reason which pervades the whole universe and all of its parts? These are the quotes that represent the kinds of thinking going on at that time. And are there kinships with Q? Yes. Therefore, this brings us to an interesting issue, you see. And that issue is Christians who are going to follow this kind of reasoning and the implications of this kind of research and reflection are going to have to become involved in looking at this entire picture in a new way, bringing in together anthropology, sociology, Hellenistic thought. Now, the basic thesis of these people is that nature, providence, fate, the ruler of all, the Father, the all. These are different names for one God. Now, what is the difference between the Stoic and the Cynic? Now, if you take that in general, you'll come to certain conclusions. But if you go to each particular Stoic, you'll find that what we know about them is that they have all been very deeply influenced by Hellenistic thought. And Hellenistic thought at this time is going through a resurgence. Now, if you then try to go back into this period to make sense of Q, and you find a kinship with the Cynic and Stoic thinkers, would it be interesting to know on what basis these can be distinguished? If there is a rational way to distinguish them, including and separating from all of these things, God, if there is a way to separate all of those things from it, then you'll see that these people have been influenced by this kind of thought, but the distinctions necessary to see their differences is nothing other than Platonism. That's the difference between Stoicism and Platonism. Therefore, Stoicism takes the primary belief that ethics is a way to proceed, and it's through ethics that you can know God, and that's all that you need is an ethical view, with a view that embraces this. It's not merely ethics, it includes this theology. But since, if any thinking Christian has gone through all of these steps and appreciates all of these distinctions, is it not likely that such thinking Christians then are going to explore Cynic and Stoic thought to find their origin? And once you do that, you're then into this realm, and you're going to see how these ideas emerged, why they're thought together into a class, and why they didn't separate them. The reason they didn't separate them and why they're not Platonists is that they don't believe that reason can make these distinctions on a lasting and rational basis. And that rational basis, even if you do so, will have any effect on you as a possible sage. That is to say, they don't believe that the dialectic and the exploration of human thought, if it does make these distinctions, will have any effect on you personally and your spiritual life. That's what separates the Stoics from the Platonists. That's why I think it's very likely then that people who are thinking Christians, who follow this kind of logic, will then come to explore these issues, and they will then be brought to face with that curious question of whether or not the distinctions between these are meaningful, and whether seeing those distinctions will in fact give you a deeper understanding of the spiritual life of man. Now, just to go back to what I was talking about before, I just want to point out that there are a number of primary thinkers that I'd like to tell you that I've drawn upon. John Locke, Albert Schweitzer, Griesbach, Weisse, especially two document theses, Lachmann, Holtzman, Schmidt. Schmidt did that wonderful work about you can understand Mark in respect to the connections between the events, and that will show you that it's a literary work. Robinson is the chap over here in Claremont, and he's the one who's doing that great work on the with Dodds, with the parables. He's also working on Q and the Gospel of Thomas. And Kloppenberg, the great major thinker in the study of Q, he's done two major works, and I invite you to go into that. Harnack, I've enjoyed. Bultmann, as you know, I get involved in. So these are the primary thinkers I've dealt with, and that's the background for the work that I've done this evening. So I've said enough. How about some questions? Thank you for your patience, by the way. And I thought I'd do that in exactly 1 hour, and I did.
You made a comment earlier that Luke was seen to be dependent upon
Q.
And I wondered, and you gave a couple of
Yes,
reasons,
yes,
and I
yes.
could see those.
That is a thesis. That's